Hello, it's Thursday, August 10th, 2017. You are listening to Inception Radio Network, voice of the fringe majority. This is Carol Carl with UFO Headline News. We are not through with the Perseid meteor shower, not by a long shot. And Earth Sky brings us a little bit more about how to watch them. Tonight, it's time to start watching them. The peak is this weekend. Unfortunately, that waning gibbous moon is in the way during the predawn hours, and that's when the meteors are normally flying most abundantly. But Perseid meteors tend to be bright. The brighter ones may well overcome the moonlit glare. Which dates are best? Well, earthsky.org is anticipating the mornings of August 12th and 13th, but try tomorrow morning, August 11th, too. And there's tips you can find later at ufoheadlinenews.com. By the way, there's a rumor going around that the 2017 Perseid meteor shower will be the best in 96 years. Well, as we know, Bruce McClure addressed that already with a, nah, it's not true. There are a bunch of tips here provided by the folks at earthsky.org. There are 10 of them. We'll pick a few highlights. Well, the first is try to observe in the evening hours. On those nights, August 10th, that's tonight, 11th and 12th. After the full moon on the 7th, the moon's going to be rising later each night. So watch as late as you can, but before moonrise. You won't see as many meteors during the evening hours, but you might catch those things called earth grazers, the slow-moving, long-lasting meteors. They travel horizontally across the sky. If you see even one, it'll give you a great new appreciation for evening meteor watching. Here's another one. It's number 6. Notice the speed and colors, if any, of the meteors. The Perseids are known to be colorful, although the moonlight will probably drown out their color this year, but it's not going to affect the speed. Those Perseids are swift-moving, entering Earth's atmosphere at about 35 miles per second, 60 kilometers per second. And then watch for something called meteor trains. That's tip number 7. A meteor train, that's a persistent glow in the air left by some meteors after they've faded from view. These trains are caused by luminous ionized matter left in the wake of this incoming space debris. A good percentage of Perseids are known to leave persistent trains. They linger for a moment or two after the meteor has gone. Again, hard to see this year in the moonlight, but watch for them. We'll skip forward to point number 10. Embrace the moon. We hear people bubble with excitement about seeing the meteors in all sorts of conditions, moon or no moon, city lights or no city lights. The Perseids in particular tend to have a lot of fireballs. And so, around the nights of the shower, try taking your lawn chair, your blanket, to some wide open location if you can. Bask in the moon's bright light. You may see that occasional fireball streak by, and it will be beautiful. That's what Bruce McClure says. And he, as usual, provides a bottom line. With the moon intruding on the pre-dawn hours this year, 2017 is not as favorable as it could be for watching the annual Perseid meteor shower. Hence the tips. And if you're so inclined, you can find the rest of them later. Read them for yourselves, gentle listeners. They'll be provided via link at ufoheadlinenews.com. Our next headline is provided by Anthony Wood, who writes it for newatlas.com. New Horizons' next target is starting to look a little weird. In less than 17 months, New Horizons spacecraft will make a close proximity pass of the ancient Kuiper Belt object KBO 2014 MU69, making what will be the most remote flyby in the history of robotic space exploration. In preparation for the pass, the team of scientists has completed an ambitious set of observations that have shed light on the possible shapes of this KBO, Kuiper Belt object. New Horizons has had a pretty great career. Following its launch in 2006 and a subsequent gravity assist from king planet Jupiter, the plucky explorer flew past the dwarf planet Pluto July 14, 2015, harvesting over 50 gigabits of data in the process. It took well over a year for New Horizons to transmit that treasure trove of information back to Earth, which has since revolutionized our understanding of Pluto. revealing a diverse and active world riddled with exciting phenomena. Its work with Pluto complete, New Horizons raced further into the Kuiper Belt toward its next target, 2014 MU69. A successful pass of that Kuiper Belt object will allow scientists to analyze data on a body that's remained largely unchanged since the birth of our solar system. To prepare for the rendezvous, a team of NASA scientists and collaborators have observed 2014 MU69 as it passed in front of 3 separate stars beginning June 3rd, and again on the 10th of July and July 17th. Images collected during these occultations would allow New Horizon handlers to better understand the shape of this Kuiper Belt object, its orbit, and its environment. Capturing an occultation event involving a small solar system object orbiting over 4 billion miles from Earth is no small task. Unlike a lunar eclipse, which blocks the sun's light across a vast swath of land for minutes at a time, the shadow cast by 2014 MU69 falls on a tiny sliver of the Earth for a duration of about 2 seconds. The team used observations made by the NASA ESA Hubble Space Telescope and the ESA's Gaia mission to pinpoint exactly where the shadows cast by the Kuiper Belt object would fall. They set up an army of mobile telescopes to image the transits. An analysis of those images snapped during the stellar occultations has revealed a number of potential configurations for 2014 MU69. This Kuiper Belt object could be shaped like, quote, an extreme prolate spheroid, end quotes, think stretched out American football, or even 2 separate bodies that either orbit incredibly close to one another or, wait for it, are actually touching. It could also look like a single body with a sizable chunk removed. The data also suggests that 2014 MU69 is no longer than 20 miles, 30 kilometers in length, or 2 bodies, each roughly 9 to 12 miles, 15 to 20 kilometers in diameter. The discovery that 2014 MU69 is not a nice, simple, spherical KBO is reminiscent of the trials faced by the scientists with the Rosetta Philae mission as they planned their interaction with the comet 67P Churyumov-Gerasimenko. Luckily for the New Horizons team, they need only orchestrate a flyby rather than an orbital insertion paired with a landing. Quote, this new finding is simply spectacular, end quotes, comments Alan Stern. He's mission principal investigator from the Southwest Research Institute out of Boulder, Colorado. Quote, the shape of MU69 is truly provocative and could mean another first for New Horizons, going to a binary object in the Kuiper Belt. I could not be happier with the occultation results, which promise a scientific bonanza for the flyby, end quotes. Alan Stern. Interestingly, there's a comic strip that runs in the Los Angeles Times. We won't name it, but they deal with space and the occasional UFO, the occasional alien. Well, they're dealing with Alan Stern now, which gives us a giggle. Undoubtedly some new aspect of NASA outreach. Let's reach out for yet another wonderful column from Cheryl Costa. She writes for the Syracuse New Times. Here's today's UFOs. Belief versus knowledge. She writes it in the first person. That is how we read it. Over the 4 years of this blog's existence, I've been asked repeatedly by fans and reporters whether or not I believe in UFOs. I am of the opinion that a person's outlook on UFOs should not be put in the context of belief. I think the whole thing comes down to belief versus knowledge. In many societies, we frequently associate belief with blind faith acceptance. Traditionally, this sort of conviction usually falls into the category of dogmatic religious doctrine. You either believe or accept the doctrine, or you don't. It seems that we as human beings have been conditioned to make character judgments about one religious faith or another. Follow our faith and you are a believer. If you don't, you are an outsider or even heretic. Many great wars have been fought over subtle interpretations of various doctrines. With regard to UFOs, our society carries this same sort of view, which labels or judges the character of those who state a position with respect to the existence of UFOs. I argue that UFOs and off-worlders are not a matter of faith, but rather a case of knowledge based on some criteria of confirmation. Case in point, in 4 years of reading UFO reports, I've been amazed at how many people state something like, quote, "I never thought these things existed until what I saw tonight," end quotes. I assert that for the observer, this is a knowledge-based confirmation and not faith. I've known a lot of people who were on the fence with their skeptical view, still others who are totally unconvinced and feel these ideas are total hogwash. Personally, I tested my position on this subject many times since my first sighting when I was 12 years old. I've read articles and books over the years that gave me knowledge of other people's sightings, but I still had my own reservations. For me, it took a series of little validations over a period of 20 years in my adult life to bring about a serious resolve on the subject. So, what happens when something extraordinary occurs that defies rational explanation? The result can go two ways. Either it confirms or reinforces for the observer that these things are real, or depending on the intensity of the encounter event, the observer's reality view is upset or even shattered. Of course, the confirmation tipping point depends on the person and what they accept as personal proof. For some folks, a simple sighting works. For others, it has to be a really amazing sighting event. For me, it was several sets of long-term data and some technical observations. Then there are those who want physical evidence, like an off-world craft landing on the White House lawn. But I argue that even an off-world craft parked on the ellipse won't be enough confirmation for some, and that's okay. Each person needs to measure what knowledge they require to make their own personal confirmation. We like that point of view. And we're going to segue something right about here. Headline, new survey shows nearly half of Americans believe in aliens. This is posted by Alejandro Rojas at openminds.tv. Nearly half of Americans believe in aliens, and almost as many believe aliens are visiting Earth, according to a new survey. However, less than 20% believe in alien abduction, and a bit less than that claim to have seen a UFO. Yes, gentle readers, it's marketing, but an interesting kind of marketing. 20th Century Fox Home Entertainment commissioned this survey. It's part of their promotional campaign for the Blu-ray release of the movie Phoenix Forgotten. They surveyed more than 1,700 Americans. Phoenix Forgotten is found footage. It's a sci-fi thriller fiction, set during a famous mass UFO sighting, that Phoenix, Arizona Phoenix Lights, 1997. Quote, "The Phoenix Lights phenomena of March 13th, 1997 led us to introduce a survey to find out what Americans believe about aliens," end quotes. Those are the words of a rep from 20th Century Fox Home Entertainment. He continued, quote, "From our survey, we found that nearly half, 47%, believe in aliens, but less than a fifth think they've ever seen a UFO or an alien themselves," end quotes. Other surveys have also found that around half the population believe in aliens, but perhaps a more interesting finding in this survey was that slightly less than 39% of those surveyed, quote, "believe aliens have visited Earth before," end quotes. Although many in that group believe aliens have visited Earth, less believe aliens are actually abducting people. Only 18% of the group said they believed in alien abduction. As for UFOs, only 16.74% claimed to have seen one. However, 27% said they knew someone who had. When it comes to the Phoenix Lights, surprisingly, 45.5% of the people said they'd heard of the event. Alejandro Rojas, who writes this, lives in Arizona. He says the topic is still hot in the news out there. In fact, he himself was part of several promotional interviews for Phoenix Forgotten in the local media, and people still love talking about the incident, especially the fact that then Governor Fife Symington claims to have seen that UFO and believes it was an alien spacecraft. So it wasn't too surprising to see 80% of the Arizona survey participants had heard of the Phoenix Lights. In fact, says Alejandro Rojas, he isn't sure how the other 20% have not heard. The survey went on to ask whether people felt the Phoenix Lights could have been caused by aliens. A whopping 67% said yes. Phoenix Forgotten, the film, portrays aliens as pretty scary.
What makes new Simply Summer's Eve Feminine Wash different? It's simple. Seriously, that's the answer. It's made with simple ingredients. Ingredients that help stop odor and help you maintain a naturally healthy pH, gently and effectively. Here's what Simply Summer's Eve ingredients do not include: harsh chemicals, dyes, alcohol, or parabens. And it comes in light, refreshing scents like mandarin blossom and coconut water. New Simply Summer's Eve Gentle Foaming Wash and Cleansing Cloths. Gentle by nature. Click the tile to learn more.
There's another found footage movie that premiered at the International UFO Congress in Phoenix. It's titled The Phoenix Incident, also based on the Phoenix Lights event, and it portrayed aliens also as frightening monsters. However, these portrayals don't seem to have influenced everyone. When asked if they felt aliens would have friendly or hostile intentions, only 9% were sure they would be hostile, 25% believe aliens are friendly, while 66% say they are just not sure. Alejandro Rojas provides wonderful graphs for this article, but they're just not good radio. So if you want to see them later and get all those calculations, head on over to ufoheadlinenews.com. They will be there. When you check them, you'll see that some of the questions on this survey in the graphs are a bit tongue-in-cheek, and some asked obviously for fun, but the survey does give some interesting insight into the general public's perception of the UFO phenomenon and the idea that aliens are visiting Earth. More and more people seem to be opening up to the idea of alien visitation. Should we be afraid? If indeed the Phoenix Lights UFO sightings were caused by aliens, no one was actually harmed. Recently, actor Kurt Russell claims to have witnessed the unidentified lights from his personal aircraft as he was flying. He and his son, who was also on board, obviously lived to tell their story. So at least the aliens flying over Phoenix in 1997 were benevolent. Alejandro Rojas guesses they could also have been testing our defenses for some future invasion. Or could this have been a man-made object simply misidentified? A pragmatic person would assume the latter was the case, as this is the most logical answer. But Alejandro Rojas says, quote, "Personally, I find it fascinating that so many people are open to the more exotic possibilities." Let's head immediately to UFOstalker.com for this sighting in Newcastle upon Tyne, England. It's MUFON case number 85723. This event took place on the 7th of August this year and got a same-day report. Here's what our witness offers by way of summary. Saw oval or egg-shaped black dot moving same speed as airplane near airport. There are photos that accompany this. If you'd like to check those out, you can find them later at ufoheadlinenews.com. Sighting specifics give us a viewing distance, in this case, of over 1 mile. The altitude was over 500 feet, and there was cloud cover. The sighting duration was 2 minutes. Object features, unknown. Object flight path, straight line path, and as we heard, this object was shaped like an egg or an oval. And we'll simply have to weather the weather, whatever, because there isn't any listed. Here's the account. I was on the phone in one of the bedrooms in my house when I saw a black egg or oval-shaped dot in the distance, although not necessarily nearby. There was an airplane directly below this object. I saw this object out of the corner of my eye. I wasn't looking for anything in the sky at all. When I first noticed this object, I assumed it was a drone because of its movements. However, this object was sighted near the local airport, thus making drone use illegal in this area. And the object was far away, but I could still see it clearly, and drones are small. The object was egg, oval-shaped, and it was going as fast as an airplane during a landing. Its movements were robotic. It didn't move diagonally at all. During the sighting, I called my brother, and he was skeptical at first and dismissed it as a drone. But when I explained to him that this was in restricted airspace for drones, he then began to consider the legitimacy of this object. The object moved into dense cloud cover then, but just before it did that, I got a picture. Ah, photographic evidence. And you know where to see that evidence, gentle listeners. Let's jet across a lot of water now and come to Steinbach, Manitoba, Canada. That's where MUFON case number 85573 took place. The date of the sighting, 8/1/2017. It got a next-day report. Here's the summary. Round, hazy ball of light in clear night sky. Sighting specifics, viewing distance unknown. Altitude likewise unknown. Sighting duration 5 minutes. Object features none. The flight path, straight line path. And this object was shaped like a disc. Let's hear how our witness puts it. Walking the dogs was super obvious. I just looked up. I thought this object was not supposed to be up there. I just looked up and saw a large, round, hazy white light going north. This light was brighter in the middle, diffused light near the edges. It was perfectly round, hazy, but in a clear sky. There were no clouds. The speed was approximately the same as a satellite, and there was no sound. This thing didn't waver in speed or direction. My reaction? Total surprise. It didn't belong up there. For some reason, I hid behind a bus and an RV. It made its way north till I couldn't see it anymore. This took several minutes. I could see 2 airliners to the west, both totally clear. I could see their exhaust trail, strobe lights. I could hear jet noise. I could see all the stars clear as sharp pins of light. The moon was bright. The sky was clear, and I also saw a shooting star about 2 minutes after in the same region. That was clear as could be. I don't believe in UFOs of the alien type. I'm a science guy. Not sure why I'm even filling this report out. Usually I can explain everything I see, or I can look it up on the web, but I'm not sure what to look up in this case. I don't recall ever being baffled before. Yikes, we're hearing life-changing event for this witness. Cool. Still in the very northerly region, let's go to Yellowknife in the Northwest Territories in Canada. That's where MUFON case number 85720 took place. This happened back in April, on the 18th of April, 2017, but for some reason the witness just reported it on the 7th of August this year. Summary: 2 lights flying in formation and then in a straight line before disappearing. There is a photo. You can find it later at ufoheadlinenews.com. Sighting specifics, viewing distance unknown. Altitude over 500 feet without cloud cover. This sighting duration was 3 minutes and 30 seconds, but the object features are simply listed as unknown. The flight path, a straight line path, and this object was shaped like a circle. Here's what happened. I was out taking pictures of the northern lights when I saw 2 very bright lights over my shoulder. I took my camera, tried to get these lights on my camera before they disappeared. Both lights were flying in formation, and then one of them speeded, started to get ahead of the other one. The one that was falling behind then started to speed up, and then the first light went out when the second one got up to the first one. They both went out then, these lights, and also disappeared. Yep, it seems to be what they do. Dropping down to more southerly climes now, we're in Stockton, California, in the more northern part of the state. It's case number 85721. The date of this sighting was August 6th. It was reported August 7th, 2017. In summary, our witness offers, I was taking photos, full moon, noticed black object flying toward the moon. No sound, no aviation lights. There are photos. Check them out. The sighting specifics include a viewing distance unknown, an altitude unknown, sighting duration 3 minutes. The object features unknown. The flight path was a path that at some point included directional change, and this object was shaped like a disc. Here's the short report. I was taking photos of the full moon when I noticed a black object flying toward the moon and into my shot. It made no sound. It had no lights. It flew from left to right, then down, and then it hovered, then it flew back to the left. When I got home and dumped the photos into my computer, I noticed there actually were 3 objects in the photos, and sometimes 2. They were flying saucer-shaped. I kept shooting, but the objects were no longer visible. They had just vanished. Vanishing, well, that's what we're about to do temporarily. We've got to go because that's a wrap. Thank you for listening to Inception Radio Network. Follow today's broadcast at UFO Headline News, iHeartRadio, YouTube. Take care of each other. We're all in this together. This is Carol